Hi everyone, my name is Kevis, Pachos. I am here to give you an update on the work that we've been doing with Dr. Tohid Erfani on FutureDAMS in decision making under uncertainty. So I'm going to give you a brief update on what we've been doing and until now, and what are the plans for the remainder of the program. So what we've done is that we have introduced an adaptive framework for infrastructure planning and as a way to address uncertainty around climate change and around demand. And in order to show the benefit of this approach, we had to compare it with two other different frameworks. One is the static, which is the simplest one, which decides only the size of the new infrastructure and assumes that all infrastructure is built at the beginning of the planning period. Then it's the scheduled, where the solution tells you not just how much but when the infrastructure should be activated. And then the adaptive, the one that we think is the best one among the three ones, is the more efficient one. Optimizes via triggers. So the answer of the solution of the adaptive approach would tell decision makers under which conditions some activations, some infrastructure options should be activated. So so we've done that, we've compared that, and we were able to show that the adaptive approach in infrastructure planning was more efficient, and we have enhanced, in order to be able to show this benefit, we introduced some discounting capabilities in the simulator that the research group is using, called PyWR. It's an open source simulator. Now, the case study that we've used, it's a synthetic case study, so it's not one of the partners. We haven't worked with the case study partners on this. We're using a synthetic case study, and it's multi-sector. So we're managing a water system and an energy system, and we're trying to meet the demand for both systems. Now we have 5 different new infrastructure options, which can be selected in order to help meet the demand. Some of them are water infrastructure, like the reservoir and the irrigation plant, and some of them is energy infrastructure, like the thermal plant, the hydropower plant, and the transmission line that helps transfer electricity from one region to another. And here you can see the blue indicates the existing infrastructure. So there's an existing reservoir in the northern region, and we are considering building a new reservoir in the southern region, and the timing and the capacity of the reservoir are have to be decided. So the HP2 is the hydropower plant, and theta I is the transmission line. Now we use 5 different objectives to optimize this problem. Here we have just simplified that. So the x-axis shows the cost, and the y-axis shows the average deficit frequency. So we have merged, taken the average across the south and north region, and the average between the energy deficit frequency and the water a deficit frequency just to show the Pareto in a two-dimensional graph. We can obviously show it in a five-dimensional graph, but it was just really quickly to show a solution of each of the different frameworks that we used, the different approaches. What we realized quickly was that, and as we expected, the static approach underperformed compared to the scheduled and the adaptive, which were able to find more efficient solutions. But then it wasn't very clear from optimizing that the adaptive outperformed the scheduled one. So in order to see the real benefit of the adaptive, what we did was to pick two solutions, one scheduled solution and one adaptive solution, and simulate those under different conditions compared to the conditions used in order to optimize this problem. So what we realized was that, so we wanted to show what if the conditions were lower, what we had lower energy demand, how will the adaptive solution respond to that, and how would the in contrast a scheduled solution respond to that. And we realized that the adaptive, because it activates interventions based on triggers, it was able to delaying the implementation of options. Since we have lower demand for energy, it was able to save up to 20 million pounds of investment while managing to keep the performance across all the other objectives: the deficit frequency in the north area for energy in the northern region, the deficit frequency for energy in the southern region, water deficit frequency for north and south. It was very similar to the scheduled. Now the scheduled solution provides like a fixed plan, telling you when the year of the intervention has to be activated and the size. So it wasn't able to adjust to the new simulated conditions and reduce the demand, reduce the cost, like the adaptive solution did. Now, when we simulated with a higher energy demand, then the performance of the two solutions is very similar. So you can see the cost is very similar to the scheduled one, and the performance across all the other objectives is the same. So what the adaptive solution did was that it built and expanded the capacity of the 5 infrastructure options earlier in order to meet the higher demand. So what we did then was to look in more detail how this where this benefit came from, and that was entirely due to the flexibility in activating the energy infrastructure, because the reservoir and the irrigation plant they were always selected in the first, as soon as they became available, under all the conditions, all scenarios. So we didn't plot the activation of those and just focused on the energy infrastructure, which was the one that brought the change between those two approaches. And so the black and the gray corresponds to the hydropower plant, and here you can see that when the demand was low, the hydropower plant wasn't built at all in the adaptive solution, whereas in the scheduled solution it was selected towards the end of the planning period with a capacity of 57.8, while then the yellow and the bright yellow indicate the activation of the transmission line, for the adaptive and the scheduled formulation. So the dashed line is the adaptive and the solid line is the scheduled. Again, here you see when the demand for energy is low, then the activation of the transmission line is delayed for about almost 20 years, something like that. Whereas when the demand is high, you can see that the transmission line is built even earlier than the scheduled solution. So the benefit of the adaptive approach that we want to show here is how it can adjust to the conditions that actually happen, and which can be different compared to the set of scenarios that you use in order to optimize these results. And the benefit of the adaptive approach is in delaying or bringing earlier the implementation of these infrastructure options. So finally, the dark red and the bright red corresponds to the thermal plant for the adaptive and the schedule, and the dashed line corresponds to the adaptive. And again, you can see that when the demand is high, they are implemented at the same time, whereas while when the demand is low, it can be delayed until 2030. So we've showed the benefits of the adaptive planning in a multi-sector system, which is a water energy. Now, as a future work, we are going to develop another adaptive approach, which uses a tree-based formulation, where different interventions are activated in different branches of the tree. They tries to adjust to different conditions using a decision tree rather than triggers. Another thing that we're working on is a game theory application to water energy system, where the different players, you have like a water player and like say an energy player, and then trying to optimize the decision around that. So that's the update on our work, and we look forward to receiving your questions. Thank you.